So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our seminar. I see some familiar faces from last seminar. Again, welcome. So for those who doesn't know me, I'm Daniel. I'm the project manager of ICDC. So I'm here to represent our team to conduct this seminar. So today's topic is the construction process and things to know during this process. Here's as part one because we're breaking down the construction process into different parts because the whole construction process is very lengthy, so we're breaking it down into different parts. So today we're going to look at the first couple of steps in the first stage of construction. So during the presentation, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask anytime. And there's going to be a special PowerPoints because some of the folks here who doesn't really know English, so I will have a Chinese version of PowerPoints after each slice that I present. So before we start, we're going to do a general overview for construction process. It's just some typical information for custom homes builds. So construction schedule, it takes between 12 to 18 months for a typical 4,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet, two-story single detached custom homes. And right now, the construction cost is between $300 per square feet to $450 per square feet. Depends on the design of the house and the size of the house and the trades involved. So during this whole process to complete the project, it involves between 35 to 45 trades, depending on the design of the house. Maybe your house has an elevator, your house has a walk-in wine cellar, you have a sauna, or if you have a theater room, it involves different kinds of trades to complete the project. So for the Chinese version, I'll stay for 10 to 15 seconds, so folks who doesn't know English can take a look. Okay, let's continue. So this is the table of contents we're going through today. We're going to start with demolition, excavation, foundation, dam proofing, rough carpentry, roofing, windows, exterior wall finishes, and the rough-ins, including electrical roughing, plumbing roughing, and HVAC roughing. And the last session is Q&A. Any questions you guys can ask during that session as well. So demolition, excavation. Demolition excavation. So typically for demolition excavation, it takes between 2 to 4 weeks. Depends on the size of the project. Definition: for new build construction to demolish and remove existing structure and objects interferes with the excavation process. Things to be aware during this stage. In terms of the scope of work, when the demolition excavation contractor to quote the project is based on the drawing and is based on demolishing the existing structure. So anything besides the actual existing structure on the property will be extra. I'll give you guys, okay. Yeah.
I was going to ask the question that we're going to talk about.
Okay, so you want me to talk about it first and then you ask, or you have questions? You can ask right now.
I thought you were going to explain it just now, so I.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Same question. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to expand the extras I'm talking about. For example, you have some trees around your house. In order to take these trees out, that's extra. If you have a shed at back of your yard, if you want them to take it out, it is an extra. For example, if you have like maybe 1 or 2 trees, it's not a lot of work. and then they will probably do it for free. But if you have like a 15 feet high tall tree around your house, then they will charge extra to take the trees out. But it's the benefit of this is they have a machine on site. It's not very difficult for them to remove. Compared to having a tree cutting company to remove the trees, it is actually cheaper to having them to do it. So do you have any questions?
That's the question I'm gonna ask.
Okay. And also make sure your property is vacant, because the process of applying for permit from the time you purchase the property to the time you have a building permit to build, it's maybe between 3 to 6 months. And during this stage, people from the street, they might look for a shower. If they see your house is vacant, they might like just live there for a while, right? So you don't know. So always check, see if your property is vacant. And by vacant, it also means before demolition excavation stage, you have to clean your house. If you leave like appliances, if you leave extra furniture in your house, 1 or 2, the contractor will look after it. But if you have a lot, like full house, they will charge extra. So unknown items, we're going to talk about asbestos, odor well tank, and septic tanks. So asbestos was commonly used in boiler and boiler pipe insulating materials prior to 1980. So asbestos has to be removed by a special certified company because it is harmful to people if the people breathe it in. And in order to remove it, you need to have a certified company to remove it safely. And old well tank, for old times, old well tank is to use to heat up the house. So if we find out there's an old oil tank buried under the foundation, so the oil has to be drained first before the tank can be removed, because the fuel normally is contaminated, and if there's a leak, it could contaminate the soil. And we're going to talk about the contaminated soil in the next part, which is excavation. So I'm going to talk about the contaminated soil over there. For septic tanks, it's very common in North York. Majority of the houses has it, especially the old houses. And sometimes the contractor will charge to remove the septic tank, and some of them, sometimes they don't. And for the contractors we normally work with, they will remove for free. Dust control. So during the demolition stage, the dust will be created. So the dust could fall on the neighbors' cars, could fall on neighbors' windows, and sometimes if they don't pay attention, they open their window, dust could get inside their house. There are different ways to deal with it. You can talk to them beforehand, let them know there's potential dust, and then just maybe offer them a free car wash, window cleaning, sometimes like general cleaning inside the house. Or during the stage, we purchase a hose, but we still have to get water access from the neighbors. Like during the demolition stage, you can put the hose wherever you're doing the demolition, but it can control somehow, but it won't be 100%. There's still going to be dust sometimes. And it also depends on your neighbors. Sometimes your neighbor might not even complain. They're good neighbors, right? So it really depends. So this is what I just talked about in English. These are some key points. Okay, moving on. Excavation. Excavation is the process of digging and removing extra dirt away from the construction to get to the ground with proper elevations and ready for foundation wall work. Things to be aware, in terms of the scope of work, the demolition excavation contractor normally leaves 2 feet more around the entire proposed building area. That's for the foundation, so that's for the next trade, to have a safe working space. Because after they form up the foundation wall, they need to have working space behind the forms. So these 2 feet is for the foundation wall guy to work safely. So that provides, so because the minimum working space is required by the city and also meets your labor. So if you get caught, like there's not enough space and proper protections, they could shut the site down. It could be very minor, but it could be very serious. And always, shoring is not part of the excavation scope. I know shoring is performed during the excavation stage, but it's never part of the scope of work for demolition and excavation, because shoring requires a shoring designer to do the drawing. And then you will use the drawing to ask shoring contractors to quote it properly. I mean, nowadays, the excavation contractor can perform shoring as well, because the machine itself is the same. It's a matter of the accessories. Instead of a bucket, they will change into a drill. So a lot of the demolition excavation guys are performing shoring as well. So unknown items, so as I mentioned, I'm going to expand contaminated soil over here. So if you see contaminated soil, soft soil, large rocks, all of them has to be removed. I mean, it's unlikely to have contaminated soils in residential areas, but for some of the residential areas was converted from commercial land, there's potential contaminated soil over there, because for commercial purposes, this property could be used as a gas station or could be used as an auto shop, and they have fuels, oils, every day to infiltrate underneath the soil. It could go deep down like 20 feet, so there's a potential of contaminated soils in residential areas too. It's unlikely, but there's a chance. For soft soils, there's different substance in the soil. Some of the soils are good, some of the soils are bad. If the soil is soft, so it has to be removed. So if we do run into this kind of situations, there's ways to fix it as well. You can either have the contractor bring engineered soils and then do an engineered test to have the engineer to approve the new soil has proper load bearing capacity for your building, then that's good. Sometimes you just use a slinger of stones to have a solid bed. And if you go extreme, like you could concrete the whole thing before you pour footing. There's different ways to fix it, but it all costs money. Most importantly, safety of the work. So 1x1 slope rule is required by the city and Ministry of Labor. By saying that, I'll give you guys an example. If we need to dig down 9 feet, because right now these custom homes, at least 9 feet basement. So for example, we have to go down 9 feet. So that means that the excavation hole to the closest ground level is 9 feet, has to be 9 feet horizontal. So if you have a vertical 9 feet down, you have to have enough space horizontally to prevent the soil collapse. So normally, but for custom homes, we probably don't have the luxury to have enough setbacks, because we try to build the house as big as we can on this piece of land. And normally, that's the reason why you go to community adjustment, to make your house bigger. Then you lose the setbacks from the property line to your proposed building. I mean, there are different ways to fix it. If you like, one thing is shoring. I mean, here I'm going to explain what is shoring. Shoring is like a protection method. So to prevent, so in this case, you cut your soil straight down, then you do like metal piles into the ground, then you put leggings, like wooden boards between these steel beams to prevent the water, to prevent the dirt falling off. So it's like just to make sure the people who are working the hole are safe if you don't have enough setbacks. So that is shoring. But shoring is expensive. It's very expensive. So right now on the market, it costs between $2,800 to $4,000 per session. But when I say per session is typically for a shoring engineer to design shorings, they probably leave 8 feet between each soldier piles, and then if you excavate is 9 feet, so you use 9 feet times 8 feet, that's 72 feet. So that's one section. So one section times $4,000, that's already $30,000. Imagine if your house is 60 feet long, the excavation hole is 70 feet long, so you have to use 70 divided by 8 feet wide and times 2,800 to 4,000. So that's a lot of money. I mean, people are trying now to do shoring. They try to talk to their neighbors, and then that's another way. Like you can get consent letters from the neighbors, but that's very unlikely to happen. If you don't have enough space from the property line to your excavated hole, that means you have to go across the property line, which you get on your neighbor's property. And because on our property, we know we already disconnected all the utilities, so there's no gas, no water, no hydro. But when you excavate on your neighbor's property, there could be potential underground gas lines, waters. There's just a whole lot of mess to do it. So even if your neighbors to agree, the process has to be done by hand. So you still have to cost extra money.
If you don't have a basement, will there be shoring?
No.
So no basement, no shoring.
Well, if you're, for example, if you have 6 feet from the property line to your excavated hole, then you're allowed to go down 6 feet without shoring. That's why it's 1 by 1 rule. You have to do it has to be 45 degrees.
Okay, so no basement, no shoring.
Yes. But here we're talking about custom homes, and normally a custom home has a basement and has a deep basement. So this is the process of doing foundation walls. So the first step is the foundation wall footing forming, and which I can show you guys. So this is how it looks. Then before you do tie any rebars into the footing, you need to have a soil engineer to look at the soil, making sure the soil has enough loading capacities for your building. And then you prepare your footing. You call another engineer inspection to see if there's enough rebars, if the rebar was done according to the drawing. And then after all the inspection passed, you pour your footing with dowels. Here I want to talk about what is dowel. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a 90-degree bar which is connecting the footing and your actual wall. So which is this. So after you pour the concrete, before the concrete hardens, you stick this piece in. You just leave it open. And then the next step, they will form their wall. Then they will tie the rebar. So before you close your wall, you call city inspections. So they will come and see if there's enough, sufficient amount of rebars in the wall. If they pass this, then you can pour concrete. Then you can strip forms. You tar and damp proofing. So this is for damp proofing. Basically, after your wall is stripped, you use asphalt kind of material to spray on the exterior side of your foundation wall. Then you use a dimple board, which is a damp proofing material. Then you do your weeping tile. Then you cover your this is called weeping tile, which you put on the outside of your foundation wall. Flush with your footing. Then you pour stones around it, making sure the mud doesn't go in. If the mud go in, it blocks the water to go into the weeping tile, because in the end of the day, your weeping tile ties into your sump pump. So the weeping tile collects the water on the exterior side of your building, and then it goes to your sump pump. Your sump pump pumps the water all the way from your building to prevent your foundation has any water leaks. And then you can you have to call another mandatory city inspection, factory inspection. If it passes, then you are allowed to call your excavation contractor to come back to backfill. Do you guys have any questions? Things to beware. During the foundation wall stage, there's a lot of coordination between the surveyors. So even before you do anything to form the footings, you have to call your surveyor to pin the location of the footings. And the second point is extra digging for thicker footings. Normally, besides the linear footings for the perimeter of your building, it has a lot of pad footings on the inside of your foundation walls. So this is where all your metal columns to sit on, because you have a lot of steel beams running in your floor joist, and you need to have steel columns to support them, and the steel columns has to sit on the footing. And these pad footings normally requires thicker measurements. For example, typically your strip footing is about 8 inches, and your pad footing is probably between 16 to 24 inches. And those extra digging work, the excavation guy won't do it because they only perform the excavation work by machine, and your foundation wall guy won't do it because their job is tying rebar and pouring concrete. So it's a little gray area, but normally we just give it to the foundation worker to do it. If it costs one man day to dig these footings, it costs between $300 to $400. It's always recommended to put stones to cover the inside of the foundation wall to provide better working conditions. Because during the foundation wall stage, if there's a rain or snow, then your site becomes messy. But if you have stones poured over the working area, then the workers can just walk on stone, and the site will be a lot cleaner. Engineer inspection is mandatory for City of Northwood for soil, footing, and foundation walls. So not only you have to notify the city about the status or stage of your foundation wall work, the city also requires to hire third-party engineers for soil, footing, and foundation walls. So you have to hire third-party engineers to go on site to inspect the work, and they will generate a report. You have to submit a report to the city, and they will put in their file for references in the future. Check conditions of foundation wall after strip forms. If there are any honeycombs or inconsistency of concrete, foundation wall contractors is obligated to fix it. I mean, nobody can guarantee the work is 100%. There's always going to be little things here and there, but find it out right away and then notify your contractor to fix it is very important. The last point here is brake ledge. Okay, we have to go back to the last slides so I can show you guys an example. So this is called brake ledge. So this is for your brake to sit on. So your foundation wall, this is a foundation wall, and this is your floor joist to sit on top of the foundation wall. But normally there's a brake ledge. The brake ledge is required minimum 6 inches from the exterior grading. So the purpose of brake ledge is to minimize the exposed concrete. It's just for the look. Imagine if there's no brake ledge, then you have exposed concrete maybe about 3 feet. So if you look at your building, all you see is foundation wall, and the foundation wall doesn't look good. And that's the purpose of doing brake ledge. And sometimes the side grading is flat, so then your brake ledge will be consistent, is on the same elevation. But if your grading changes from the front to back, then your brake ledge will be stacked. Any questions? Rough carpentry. Rough carpentry is a fundamental aspect of construction that involves framing structural work to create skeletal framework of a building. It is typically performed at early stages of construction and provides the structural support upon which the rest of the building is constructed. Rough carpentry looks after various elements, including wood framing, trusses, and steel components. So things to be aware during the rough carpentry stage. In terms of the scope of work, typically boxing roughing pipes are included in rough carpentry's contract. Any decorative work is not included in the contract. So when I say decorative work, for example, you have fireplaces, you have coffer ceilings, you want to do special decks for your tubs. Those are all decorative works. Okay.
Yeah. What part will be the steel component?
It's part of your structural design. So your structural engineer, so for example, if your structural engineer thinks this house is very big, the wood LVLs or I-dress will be able to vary the load of your building, then they will put steel beams and columns into their design, and that's the steel components I'm talking about. And interior design drawings needs to be provided to framer the quote. For example, some people think that it's always easier and cheaper to have the framers to do it hourly. So the framer will tell you, okay, it costs me $200 per hour to do all these decorative works. And in the end, they will submit an invoice that most of the times you will get a surprise. So I always recommend it to tell your framer the scope of work you want to do and have them to give you a lump sum price. When you have a lump sum price, you can always negotiate and try to get the price lower and try to get to the ideal price that you want. And I'm going to expand a little bit more here. The reason why we need interior drawings before the framer starts. Sometimes interior designer, they might locate some of the non-load bearing walls. They might want to change the floor layout a little bit, and those informations needs to give to the framer before they start. Rework always costs money, so we would rather work slowly, precisely, but do it once. We never want to do it twice. I can give you guys another example. So normally, you have a big skylight above your staircase area. And so from the point, your skylight, to the underside of your second floor ceiling, there's a tunnel. So the tunnel can be round, it can be rectangular, it can be a square. This is where you need your interior designer. They have to design it. They need to design the shape of your tunnel, they need to design the style of the tunnel. So that has to be given, the information has to be given to the framer prior to the start. Second point, before framers start, builder needs to ensure structural steel, first floor, subfloor materials are on site. In addition, you have to make sure there's power on site because they have a lot of power tools. They require recharge, and they have their air compressor. It requires to be hooked to a power source. And always make sure there's some extra materials for the framers to use. If you don't know what extra materials you need, always give them a call before you order the materials. Because for the steel columns, you always order it after, because the site condition could be different to the drawing. So you might need extra materials to use it as a temporary column. So that's part of temporary support. And sometimes when you're setting walls, you have to have temporary bracings to make sure when there's a strong wind, the wall doesn't get blown off. So, moving on. Ask your framer to check the first floor elevations to ensure the foundation wall is at the right height and the top of the foundation wall is level. This is very important because there's requirements and bylaws from the city. Your building height cannot exceed certain limits. So your first floor foundation wall sets the elevation. That's why on your drawing it says first floor elevation. And normally your surveyor will give you a benchmark, and that benchmark is first floor elevation. So it's unlikely to make a mistake for framers as they're going up, because on the drawing it says your main floor elevation is 11 feet high, your second floor is 9 feet high. So as you're going up, it's very unlikely to make a mistake. But the elevation on top of the foundation wall is very important. And you have your framer to check it, and also the city requires you to submit as build drawing from your surveyor. So you have to ask your surveyor to check the first floor elevation as well. And the city will put this information into their file and use it as a reference for the future. More things to be aware. Check the levelness, plumbness per floor, and payment schedules to follow the stage of framing work. When it's a stage of framing work, it means the completion of each stage of the framing work. So I'll give you guys an example. 15% payment after first floor, subfloor. 15% payment after first floor wall. So always have your payment after the completion of each stage. That gives you time for your site super to check. If there's any mistake, you gotta give them time to fix. And always you have that flexibility to have the money in your hand. Welding work is extra, it needs to be performed by a welder. Because you have the steel components in your house, wherever there's steel column and steel beam, it has to be welded. It costs between $1,500 to $4,000, depends on how much steel components you have in your house. Order trusses before foundation wall starts, because typically it takes between 4 to 6 weeks.
For the 1,500 to 4,000 is per what? Per house?
Per house. Yeah, it's a long-term price. Because the trusses are built in the manufacturer, so it takes time. So right now it takes between 4 to 6 weeks, so you have to order based on how your project progresses. Provide RSO sheets to framer for windows and doors openings. RSO represents rough size openings. If, for example, if your window is 36 by 72, maybe your RSO is 38 by 74. So that information is very important. Make sure you give it to your framer before they start. Provide a garbage bin on site. The reason being is, if you don't have a garbage bin, the framer will just pile all their garbages into a pile. You have to hire general labor, come and put it into the bin. But it really depends. If your site is big, there's room for a garbage bin, of course, it's ideal. But sometimes the site is tight, you can't have a bin on site, so you have to spend money on general labor. Order skylights before trusses arrive on site. You guys probably wondering, like, there's instructions for the framers to use to frame the rough opening for skylights. Why do you have to have skylights on site? Things always goes wrong, and sometimes the measurement doesn't match. Rework always costs money. I always say it. It's very important. You'd rather do it once slowly than going back and fix it. And coordination with other trades. Give you guys an example. If you have a tub and your tub is against the exterior wall, so before a framer frame a deck for the tub, you have to coordinate with your insulation drywall trades. So they have to come, tuck the insulation in, put the poly in before the framer put the deck in. Because if they put a deck in, there's no way there's enough room for the insulation drywall guy to put the insulation in. So that means what? Rework. rework costs money. So it's very important to coordinate with other trades during the framing stage. Roofing. Roofing is a crucial aspect of construction that involves the installation of protective covering over a building structure to shield it from weather elements, such as rain, snow, sunlight, wind, and extreme temperatures. The primary function of a roof is to provide shelter and protect the interior of the structure from external environmental conditions. So there are different materials for the roofing. There's asphalt roofing, there's cedar shakes and rubber slate, which we'll look at the next slides, I believe. Okay, we're gonna come back to it. Okay, so things to be aware. So any plumbing venting pipes, HVAC related venting pipes needs to be done prior to roofing works to avoid double work. Because after a framing, the next stage is roof. So this part is about coordination with your trades. Because your plumbing is a vent. If you have a drain, it requires to have a vent. And your vent has to go to the roof. If you have a fireplace on the second floor, your venting probably has to go to the roof. But these holes has to be cut, and these pipes has to be put through the roof prior the roofer to start. Because you don't want to have the roofing down, and then these plumber and HVAC contractor come back and cut a hole in the roof. That will cause water leaks. If to avoid it, of course you have to call your roofer back. But rework costs money. You don't want to rework that. Valley flashing should be extended beyond the exterior wall to avoid potential water leaks. So this is called valley flashing. So when you have two different surfaces meeting at one point on your roof, you require a valley flashing. So this is an example of the correct way to do it, because you can see the valley roofing extended to the edge of your to the eaves, so the water can go into the gutters directly. Because some of the contractors, they tend to save money. They don't extend their valley flashing all the way to the gutter. They stop. Sometimes they stop here. Sometimes they stop there. If it doesn't pass your exterior wall, because there's a distance between your eaves and the exterior wall, if it doesn't pass, if there's a leak, the water will go inside to your house. It won't go all the way to the gutter. So there's a potential issue.
What if a roof is flat? How do they do the valley flash?
Then there's no valley flash. You use different materials for a flat roof. You have to use flat roof materials. It has 3 different layers, have different ways to waterproof, and so valley flashing is not required for flat roof. Ice and water shield 3 feet from the eaves. So this, as you can see, you can only see part of the ice and water shield. And this is required 3 feet from the eaves up. So if your ice and water shield starts in here, then 3 feet up to here. Sometimes, if the homeowner is willing to pay, you can cover your entire roof with ice and water shields. It's just a different, another layer of protection to prevent water going in from the roof. For the scope of work, so the vent covers and flashings are included. If you have bathroom vents going through your roof, then the vent covers are included in the roofing contractor scope, and flashings like valley flashing is included in their price. Okay, if you guys don't have further questions, we're going to move along to the next stage of construction. Oh, okay. There's a little bit more. So I want to talk to you guys about the materials nowadays, very popular for residential houses. So there's asphalt shingles. These are most commonly used. And this is cedar shakes, which is wood, and then rubber slate. So let's talk about asphalt shingles. It's mostly most commonly used ones for residential houses. And there's popular brands like Landmark, Old Corning, and there's different levels of asphalt shingles. There's 25 years, there's 50 years. So 50 years is more expensive than 25 years, but lasts longer. Cedar shakes is very popular in the 2000s, so maybe 20 years ago. There's a lot of custom homes, big houses, they use cedar shakes, and it changes the color after a while from the rain, from the sun. But some people like the look. And nowadays, rubber slate becomes popular instead of cedar shakes. So rubber slate, as you can see, it's rubber. But slate is a stone. So there's real slate, which is stone. That requires very, very strong structure of your house. Imagine you lay all these stones on top of your roof. That requires special structural designs for it. So instead of using real slate, people come up with the rubber slate. So the weight is a lot lighter, but the look is much better compared to the asphalt roof. And also it's very expensive. So for example, if your asphalt shingle costs $12,000, then this rubber slate probably will cost you $65,000. It is that much expensive. Windows. So I'm going to use aluminum windows and vinyl windows as example for windows, because those two are the most commonly used ones for residential projects. I'm just going to do a quick comparison for aluminum windows and vinyl windows. So aluminum, for the cost, aluminum windows are more expensive. Vinyl windows are more economic and most commonly used in Canada. And the size is a bit wrong. So this is the cost and this is the durability. So let's talk about the cost first. So aluminum windows cost between $400 to $1,200 per window, and vinyl costs between $250 to $600 per window. For durabilities, aluminum windows last 20 to 25 years. Vinyl is 10 to 40. And for the aluminum windows, it performs better with the extreme weathers. Vinyl windows performs less. Vinyl windows are easier to maintain and more efficient. The reason being is vinyl is a better insulator compared to aluminum. I'm not going to get too detailed into like the windows because they're pretty much the same. You just need to know aluminum is more expensive than vinyl.
Which material is more like noise efficient?
I'm going to say because vinyl is a better insulator, so vinyl has better noise prevention. But for windows, what affects the noise the most is the glasses. Depends on the thickness of the glass and how many layers of glasses you have. Okay, moving along, exterior wall finishes. So okay, I pretty much laid out everything on the screen here. So exterior wall finishes including brick, precast, artificial stone, natural stone, stucco, vinyl siding, metal siding like ACM. ACM, aka aluminum composite materials. It's very, very popular right now for modern homes. And the cost, supply and installation, I laid it out on the screen. So here, the most expensive one is natural stone, and the brick, as you can see, is only $12, $14. Precast, $40 to $45. I'm going to expand on precast on the next slides, and stucco and aluminum composite materials. precast. Precast is most commonly used for custom home, especially on the front facade. There are different, for the ones who doesn't know, like there are different ways to cast precast. These precast manufacturers, sometimes they use wood form, sometimes they use foam form. So for the precast use wood form, the surface comes more smooth and even, but it's more expensive because wood is more expensive than styrofoam. So it's actually more expensive for them to produce the precast, and that's why their price tend to be more expensive than the ones who use the foam form. But foam form is more economic. And the colors can be selected because it's man-made. They can add different powders into the mix to create different colors. So the precast looks like limestone. So right nowadays, people tend to use precast to try to match the color of limestone. So limestone color is very popular, or it will be white or gray, sometimes beige. So precast is cheaper than natural stone, but more expensive than stucco. Things to be aware. So this is very technical. So mason installers, they leave like whip holes to allow moisture to come out. Normally they leave their whip holes at the bottom layer of the brick. So you have a brick ledge, then your first layer of brick, and that's where they leave the whip holes, so between the bricks. Maybe every 4 feet they leave a hole just to allow the moisture to come out behind, because there's an airspace between the exterior wall and the brick. Sometimes moisture traps in there and it needs the space to let the moisture come out. Proper brackets to install precast. Brackets needs to be nailed or screwed into the exterior wall studs. As you can see, these panels are big. They're very heavy. So manpower won't be able to lift these panels onto the proper location. So it requires a machine. That means to have proper brackets to secure these panels is very important. That's for the safety of the workers. That's also for the safety of the house. And then start mason work from the lowest point. Like this is just down the road. If you always have to start from the bottom, so you can make sure you have this same layer of brick all the way across the building. And brick ties to be installed every 3 to 4 rows of brick vertically. So this brick ties is the same function as the brackets. So the brackets is to secure the precast. Brick ties to secure the brick. Electrical roughing, plumbing roughing, HVAC roughing. So this is the order of the roughings. So you do your HVAC roughing first, then you do your plumbing roughing, you do your electrical roughing, you do your low voltage roughing if you require any low voltage in your house. I'm going to expand it on all 4 points in the following slides. So HVAC roughing. It includes any bathroom venting, fireplaces, gas equipment ventings, and ductwork per HVAC drawing. And HVAC roughing has to be inspected. It's mandatory for the city. And things to be aware. I only put a little dot there. Ductwork can be adjusted according to site condition, because sometimes you have your basement windows on the perimeter of the wall, and sometimes these HVAC designers, they don't pay too much attention. They just ignore the exterior windows. So they run their duct along the perimeter of your foundation wall, which might block your windows. So, but this can be adjusted. So how you run your ductwork can be adjusted on site, as long as you have enough vent holes. There's enough air supply in each room, and there's proper cold air return, making sure the air circulates. All these ductwork locations can be adjusted according to site condition. Plumbing roughing, including plumbing drain pipes, water supply pipes. Plumbing drawings are not required. So I just lay it out there. So ABS, normally it's black, but this photo I find is white. And water supply pipes, you see this blue and red line, the material is PAX. And plumbing drawing is not required for low-rise residential. So maybe for high-rise or townhouses, plumbing drawing is required because the plumbing system is more complicated. So the plumbing work will be just done by the plumbers based on their experience and site conditions. Things to be aware. Water supply pipes cannot be on the exterior wall unless it's spray foam behind the pipes, or you have to build a new wall in front of the exterior wall. Sometimes you have your shower fixtures on the exterior wall. In order to have that, you can do either way. Over here. And plumbing fixture roughings need to be installed before installation and drywall. So this photo doesn't show well, but for example, if you have a shower if you have a shower, and so before you close to the installation and drywall, you have to install the plumbing fixture roughings, and it comes with your plumbing fixture. That means before you do your plumbing roughing, you have to have your plumbing fixtures selected in the order. Pressure test before calling city mandatory inspections. So the city wants to see if there are any leaks in your pipes. There are two ways to do it. In the summertime, you just fill your pipes, your drain pipes with water. In the winter time, if you don't have heat in your house, in order to do the inspection, you just put air into the pipe. Then you put a pressure gauge to show the inspector there's no leak. Plumbing pipes recommended to run along the duct, HVAC ductworks to avoid extra bulkheads. So ductwork is the largest roughing for the house, and so that's why you do HVAC first, then your plumbing comes, they see how the ductwork runs, they run their pipe as much as they can along the HVAC pipes. So you don't have to box in, you don't have to do any back framing after. There's extra cost and extra time. Electrical. So electrical wires roughings with the electrical boxes. Electrical panels to be installed before calling ESA inspections. So ESA inspection is now part of city mandatory inspection, but the city requires to see the ESA certificate. So the electrician calls their own inspection. There's an association called ESA Association. So they call their ESA inspectors to come to look at their electrical work. In order for city to close all the roughing inspections, you have to provide this electrical certificate to the city. Things to be aware for the scope work. Electrical contractors quote their quote according to the size of your house and the ESA regulations. Everything else is extra, like pole lights, stair lights, balance lights, car charger, heated floor in bathrooms or basement, and install lighting fixture installation. Here, for light fixture installation, I mean the complicated ones. Like if you have a chandelier, so the electrician will cost extra to install your chandeliers. But if it's just a ceiling light, sometimes you can just include in your price. Here I want to expand a little bit more. This is where you probably want to pay attention. So some contractors, like they lowball their quote to get the job. they will make all their monies on the extras. So what they do is they tend to make their unit price items, for example, tall lights, price higher, and then just make their lump sum price, like ESA requirements items low. For example, you have two different electrical quotes. One is 20,000, one is 30,000. If you don't look at the unit price, you're definitely going to go with the 20,000 one, right? Because they all quoted based on the size of the house, based on the electrical regulations. But if you go back to the sheets, it's called provision sheets. So you have your tall lights extra, you have your stair lights extra, and if you look at their unit price, maybe the $20,000 one, their tall lights is $100 per tall lights. You have the $30,000 contractor quoted $50 tall lights. For example, you have a custom home, and normally it will be at least 200 tall lights in your house. And you use $200 times 50,000, that's 10,000 right there. So that's the kind of game they play. So you always have to compare apple to apple during the quote comparison stage. Electrical roughing work after backframing. So compared to the plumbing and HVAC roughings, the electrical roughing work, you do it after backframing. So after your framer boxes all the HVAC and plumbing pipes, then your electrician comes, they see where they can feed their wire through without causing more troubles, to have your backframer coming back to do extra works. So that's why you have your electrical roughing work done after backframing. Low voltage roughings. So that includes your speaker wires, lighting control wires, security system wires, central vac system, TVs, and internet. So things to be aware. Low voltage wires are normally done by the automation contractor. Electrician can supply and install low voltage wires if it's not complicated. If you're just looking for a dimmer switch in your house, nothing fancy, then this can be performed by an electrician. But if you're looking for an automation system is fully functioned, for example, it controls like how many speakers in your house, how many, like you want to control your speakers separately in different rooms, or like one button control, like this control 4 system right now is amazing. Like if you walk into your front door, you want to turn on the lights for your entire house, there's a button for that. If you click it, all the lights in your whole house turns on. So stuff like that, you have to hire an automation contractor. They will give you recommendations on how many speakers you need to be installed, how to control your lights. It's more proper. Like you can even control your theaters with this system. It's very fancy, it's very custom, it's very flexible. So for a 4,000 to 6,000 square feet house for an automation system, it costs between $40,000 to $60,000. So that will be it for today.